that there was a study and published in the journals, and where they tried Anuvasana Basti. Anuvasana Basti is one of the Bastayascha Uttara Bastaya Basti. Anuvasana is one type of the vicharana sneha, and they tried Anuvasana Basti for the purpose of doshokleshana in a prior to Vamana, and they claim that it is significantly efficient producing the utkleshana in the body. Okay, so that was done in a small patient population. So if you want to have a derive a solid conclusion, we need to perform the same in a larger population. Then only we can administer Snehapasti as a Purva Karma for the Vamana in routine basis. So, in my opinion, the Vicharana Sneha may act as Shodhananga Snehapana, and it can be act as Shamana Snehapana, because there are certain rules for administering the Shamana Snehapana, and it is along with Ahara, so it can be a part of Vicharana Sneha can be Brahmana Sneha, because Brahmano Rasa Madhyadyu. Rasa Madhyadi Ahara Yukta Sneha is considered as the Brahmana Snehapana. So all the three actions or karmas can be achieved with the Vicharana Sneha also. So Abhyanga etc. as Purva Karma for Vasti and Nasya is one type of the Vicharana. Sneha Vasti as Purva Karma for Niruha Vasti. This also can be considered as a Vicharana Sneha. And Navana as Purva Karma for Shiro Virechana. That also can be a Vicharana Sneha, which is as a Purva Karma. Shodhananga, purpose of Shiro Virechana. Sneha mixed with Ahara in Uttama and Madhyama Matra for Shodhananga purpose. So the Matra we have to fix if you want to utilize Vicharana Sneha for the purpose of the Shodhananga. Okay, coming to Achapana. So there is a lot of debate happening since many years. When I was studying BAMS, then also I was hearing the same debate. Achapana means it is plain ghee, plain girda. Many learned scholars also say that Achapana is nothing but the plain girda. It is not the samskarita. But Acharya never.
Earphone kuda. May
I stop the presentation?
So you can continue, sir.
No, ask the audience to mute the mic.
Yes, we muted it, sir. We muted all the participants, sir.
Okay.
Please, sir. Please.
So, Achapeya is, as per their version, Achapeya is the plain ghee. But Acharya never meant like that. Acharya says that Achapeyastu yasnehu na tamahur vicharanam snehasya sa vishagdishta kalpaha prathama kalpikaha. So the first kalpana of this sneha is considered as the Achapana. Na tamahur vicharanam. That which is not vicharana is considered as Achapeya. Vicharana means it should be administered with the Odana or in the form of Abhyanga. So apart from that, whatever method we administer, that is Achapeya. That means if Samskarita Grita is administered alone, that can be considered as Achapeya. If Samskarita Grita administered along with the Vicharana, Ahara, or in the form of Abhyanga, etc., that can be considered as Vicharana. So the plain Grita also can be considered as Achapaya. But there are a lot of disadvantages for the plain Grita to be used as Achapeya. Because Natwamam Pranayat Sneham. There are a lot of such references. Nasarpir Kevalam Pitte Same Visheshataha. Like that, a lot of references are there, especially in the Pitta. The Kevala Sneha is not indicated. That means the Asamskarita Sneha. Same Visheshata. If it is Sama Pitta, Visheshata, we should not administer the Samskarita Pitta. Because Samskarita Pitta is indicated in many of the Pitta Pradhana Yatis. Pittasya Sarpishapanam. The Upakripa Pitta itself is Sarpisha. So that is why Sarpipana in Pitta is nothing but the Samskarita Krita. Okay. So Pitta Hara Dravya Yukta Samskarita Krita. So in the context of Yadokta Hetu Bhavacha, Nachapeyo Vicharana. Na Achapeyo Vicharana. So that which is not Vicharana is considered as the Achapeya. So in this context, Sarvanga Sundara Vyakhyana gives a very beautiful commentary. In that, Achapeya Sneha means Kevala Eva, na Samyuktaha. He mentions it is Kevala Eva Sneha, na Samyukta. It is not mixed up with any other dravyas. Kevala Upayogitvat, Bahupayogitvat ityartha. Nanu hya Kevalaha Sneho na Vicharanetyum uchati. So even if it is only Kevala Sneha, then it cannot be always called as Achapana. It can be Vicharana also. Why? Because if Kevala Sneha is administered in the form of Abhyangadi, Abhyanga, Murdhini Taila, Basti, etc., then it can be considered as Vicharana, but it is not Achapeya. Peya, Pana only, that is why the word Achapeya is utilized. The Kevala Sneha, when it is taken through the oral route, when it is Pibed, Peya, then only it can be considered as Achapana. Okay, again further he gives Achaha Kevaloya Sneha Piyate Sa Vicharana Nabhavati. Murdadi Tarpanadinatu Kevalasya Snehasya Ya Upayogaha. Sa Vicharana Edi. Kevala Sneha is used in the Murdhini Taila, etc. And it is not considered as Achapeya. Can be considered as Vicharana Sneha. Okay.
खींचेंगे मुझे करंट आएगा नहीं मैं समझ नहीं झटना है यहाँ पर बटन खुली छोड़ देती हैं
And coming to the Satya Snehana. Satya Snehana is nothing but almost similar to Vicharana. But the problem with Satya Snehana is mainly Acharya mentioned it for Sneha Dusha, Sneha Nitya, like that, a particular set of patients. On them, it is very difficult to achieve the Snehana if you administer in a normal way. Or else we can say Sadhya Eva Snehana, it is done. It is achieved Sadhya Eva Snehana. This Sadhya Snehana also can be utilized for Shamana purpose, Shodhana purpose, and Brahmana purpose. It's already Brahmana Sneha because of its Samyukta nature. And if it is dose specific and Kala specific, then it can be considered as Shamana Sneha and Shodhananga Snehapana. So some of the examples of Sadhya Snehana are Panchaprasritika Peya, Visnigdha, Gunayukta, Ahara, etc. Okay, the only difference between Sadhya Snehana and Vicharana Sneha is always with Ahara Dravyas and or with the Abhyangadi form. But Sadhya Snehana, sometimes it is with Ahara Dravya, Sneha Yukta Ahara Dravya, or sometimes Siddha Guna Pradhana Ahara Dravya itself is act as Sadhya Snehana. So that is the difference between Vicharana and Sadhya Snehana. Coming to our topic, Shodhananga Snehapana. Shodhananga Sneha. What makes a Snehapana Shodhananga? This is a very important question before you start to administer the Snehapana. Generally, we think that before Vamana, if you do Snehapana, that is Shodhananga Snehapana. Before Virechana, if you do Snehapana, that is Shodhananga Snehapana. And you think that I am planning this as purpose of Shodhananga. And the patient also knows that I am taking this for the purpose of Vamana as a Purvakarma. But Sneha doesn't know for what purpose it is administered. That means to make the Sneha understand for which purpose we are administering, there are certain rules and regulations we need to follow before administering the Snehapana. Okay, so in that, one of the important factors is the dose of the Snehapana. What is in which quantity we are going to administer. If you are giving 1 teaspoon every day before Vamana for 5 days or 7 days, never it is going to become Shodhananga Snehapana. And the Kala, that is another important factor which we need to understand. So, before Vamana, if you are giving Snehapana without following any guidelines of the Shodhananga Snehapana, it is not going to act as Shodhananga Snehapana. So, to become a Snehapana as Shodhananga Snehapana, we have to observe the dose and also observe the Kala. I am coming into detail to this. So, if you go through the text, there are different dose opinions we can find. According to Acharya, according to Vagbhata, according to Sushruta, and some later Nighantus, etc. There are difference of opinions we can see. Acharya Charaka says that Madhyama Matra is indicated for the purpose of the Shodhananga Snehapana. Acharya Vagbhata says that Shuddhaye Bahu Matra, that means Uttama Matra is indicated for the Shodhananga purpose. So Uttama Matra and Madhyama Matra means Dvabhyam Chadurbirashtabhir Ahoratra Mahat Krishnam Ardaham Cha Pratikshati. If the Sneha administered gets digested in Ardaha, half day, that is Avara Matra. If it is one full day it takes, then it is Madhyama Matra. If the Sneha digests in 24 hours, Ahoratra, then it is considered as Uttama Matra. So that is the understanding of Madhyama, Uttama and Avara Matra of the Snehapana. So here, Acharya Charaka says, Arushka Spota Pitaka Kandu Pamabhiravdita, Pushtinascha Pramidhasha, Vata Shonitakaschai, Nati Bahwashinaschaiva, Mutukoshtastataivaja, Pibeyur, Madhyamam Matram, Madhyamaschapiye Bale, Pibeyur, Madhyamam Matra, Madhyamaschapiye Bale, Matresham, Manda Vibramcha, Nacha Ati Balaharini. So if you administer the Snehapana in Madhyama Matra, especially for the Madhyama Bala person, it is causes less Vibramchas, less Vyapas. And Nacha Ati Balaharini, it's not going to reduce the Bala excessively. Sukhena cha snehayati. And also it does the snehana sukhena. Sukhena cha snehayati. Shodhanarthi cha yujati. And this is intended for the purpose of the Shodhananga purpose. So that is Acharya Charaka's version. So in the Hyastane Jirnayeva in the Snehu Acha Shuddhaye Bahu, Vagbhadacharya says. So Shuddhaye Bahu, the Sneha in the Acha Matra, Achapana, Sneha is administered in Uttama Matra is for the purpose of the Shodhana. Okay, so Charakacharya says Madhyama Matra and Vagbhadacharya says Uttama Matra. And again, Sushrutacharya given 5 types of matras for the Snehapana. In that, one of the matras says that Ya Matra Parichiryate Chaturbhaga Avasheshite Snehaniya cha Samatra Bahudoshe cha Pujita. So, Ya Matra Parijiryeta Chaturbhaga Avasheshite. When 1/4 of day is left, that means 9 hours. 12 hours is a day, and 1/4 is left means that means 9 hours. 3, 3, 3, 3. So, first 3, that means 9 hours. In the 9 hours, if the Sneha gets digested, that Matra is considered as Snehaniya cha Samatra. That is intended for the purpose of the Snehana. For what? Bahudosheshu Pujita. Administered in the Bahudosha Avastha. Bahudosha Avastha is, of course, it is, Bahudosha is the criteria for the Shodhana. So, for the Shodhana purpose, we have to select the 9 hours dose. So, according to Charakacharya, it is 12 hours dosage, and according to Vagbhadacharya, it is 54 hours dosage, and according to Sushrutacharya, it is 9 hours dosage. None of them opine that we should go below 9 hours. That means Avara Matra is not indicated for the Shodhananga. So, from the difference of opinion, we can understand that based on the Bala of the patient, depending on the Bala of the patient, either of these 3 dosage forms we can select. Based on the Bahudosha Avastha, based on the Agni, based on the Bala of the patient and also Vyadi, either of these 3, Uttama Matra, Madhyama Matra, or 9 hours dosage can be utilized for the purpose of the Snehapana. Shodhananga Snehapana. And if you use the dosage less than this 9 hours, then it cannot be considered as a Shodhananga Snehapana. Or it is not going to achieve the Utkleshana in the body. Okay, so coming to the most important factor, that is Kala. Kala, in the sense, Hyastane Jirnayevani Snehu Acha Shuddhaye Bahu. Shamana Kshuddhato Anannu Madhyamatrascha Shasyate. So in the Ashtanga Hridaya, Snehavidya Adhyaya, Acharya says that Hyastane Jirna Evani Sneho Acha Shuddhaye Bahu. Hyastane Jirna Evani. After the previous day's food has digested. When the previous day's food get digested, previous night's food get digested in the morning, of course. So when the previous night's food get digested in the morning, Sneho Acha Shuddhaye Bahu. Sneha should be administered in the Bahumatra for the purpose of Shodhananga Sneha. So the Kala is very specific. Hyastane Jirna Evani. That is important. And coming to the Shamana Sneha. Shamana Kshuddhato Anannu Madhyamatrascha Shasyati. For the purpose of Shamana, the Sneha, again, it can be given in the morning also, but after the Kshuddhato, after the appearance of the Kshuddha Pradurbhava. So that is why whenever we administer, we should be very specific about the Kala of the administration of the Snehapana. But nowadays, we are not observing or giving much importance for the Kala. Whenever we are free, we administer. For example, if you are coming to the college at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, you will be administering the Snehapana at 8 o'clock. But by that time, the patient might have developed the hunger. And this is not going to act as Shodhananga Sneha. Because of the Agni Vriddhi, the kleda in the body gets Shoshana. And if you administer the Snehana, at that time, the Sneha would get digested instead of increasing the kleda in the body and doing the Utkleshana. So if you administer the Snehapana after the Kshuddha Pradurbhava, it is instead of achieving the Shodhananga purpose, it is going to end up in Shamana action. So that is why many a times you must have observed, if you keenly observing the Snehapana, many a times you might have seen that when you administer the Shodhananga Snehapana, you might have seen some Shamana effect in the body. That is because of this problem. For example, if a Kushta patient having a lot of itching and you are administering him with some Tikta Gritam, and on the second day itself, the patient says that, sir, my itching has reduced. That means that you are not very specific about the Kala because you have administered the Sneha after the Kshuddha Pradurbhava. That is why this ghee has ended up in Shamana action. Generally, during the Shodhananga Snehapana, due to Utkleshana, there will be Lakshana Vriddhi can be seen. Okay. So, Shamana Kshuddhato Anannu Madhyamatrascha Shasyati. So that is a Hyastane Jirna Evani. That is very important. Same opinion, Acharya Charaka also have. Pibe Samshamanam Sneham Annakale Prakangshitam. Samshamana Sneha can be administered in the Annakala. And another importance is the Shamana Sneha can be given in any Annakala. It can be given in the morning, Annakala, after the Kshuddha Pradurbhava. It can be given in the noon time after the Kshuddha Pradurbhava. It can be given in the evening after the Kshuddha Pradurbhava. But Shodhananga Sneha can be given only in the morning, that is Hyastane Jirna Evanu, after the previous night's food get digested. And further, Acharya Charaka says, Shuddhyartam Punar Ahare Naishe Jirne Piben Naraha. For the purpose of Shodhananga purpose, Shodhananga Snehapana, Punar Ahare Naishe Jirne Piben Naraha. Nishi Ahara, previous night's food gets digested. At that time, we have to administer the Shodhananga Snehapana. And if you go through the Sushrutas, Acharya Sushrutas first version, he says, Udayagiri Shikara Samstite Pratapta Kanaka Nikara Pita Lohite. Like that, very poetically he explains how the golden sun rays falls from the mountain top in the morning hours. At that time, we have to administer.
Hello.
Yes. Yes.
Sorry, sir.
Okay. So at that time, we have to administer the Shodhananga Snehapana. Okay. So from these two slides, what we understand is the dose is not that much important when compared to the Kala, because in the dose itself, Acharya is having difference of opinion. One says Uttama Matra, another says Madhyama Matra, and another says 9 hours dosage. But when it comes to Kala, all the Acharyas having same voice. That means it should be administered in the morning hours and it should be before Kshuddha Pradurbhava. when the previous night's food has digested. Okay, so that is why the kala of Shodhananga Snehapana is very important, and always be stick on to this particular point. Now coming to the practical aspect of this kala, how you understand the patient has digested the previous day's food and Shuddha is not started. This is very difficult point here, because generally we understand that our food has digested means when we feel hunger. If you go through the Jirnahara Lakshana also, in that also Shut Pipasa is one of the Lakshanas. Shuddha is one of the Lakshana. So what I understand from this is, in the Jirnahara Lakshana, except Shuddha, all the other Lakshanas, if you see in the patient, then we can understand that previous food has digested and we have to administer the Shodhananga Snehapana at that time. For example, if you wake up early in the morning around 5 o'clock, generally you are waking up at 7 or 8, and if you wake up early in the morning at 5 o'clock, you feel that suddenly the hunger will be there. Or else we can say, generally when you wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning, soon after waking up, you feel to eat a lot of breakfast? No. You feel that stomach, there is no fullness, feeling of fullness is there, but hunger is not there. But after your prata karmas, like Vega Visarjana and Snana, etc., so you feel the hunger, you feel to eat. So till that time, you are not feeling, but you don't have the feeling of fullness of the stomach also. So this means that the previous food has digested, but Shuddha is not produced. This also can be understood in this way. And again, one more method what we can do is, if you are not able to very clearly demarcate these things, you can stick on to the Udaya Kala. Udaya Kala. So Udaya Kala you can get in the calendar, traditional calendars, in that they have mentioned at this time 6:20 Udaya and evening 6 o'clock Astamana. So every day Udaya Astamana will be recorded in the calendars. So you can stick on to this Udaya Kala, and at that Udaya Kala we have to administer the Shodhananga Snehapana. That is what Sushrutacharya also says that. Okay, so if you stick on to this time and the dose to some extent, then it can be act as Shodhananga Snehapana. Duration, how long we have to administer the Snehapana. Trihamacham mridau koshte krure saptadinam pipid samyak siddho adhava yavadataha satmi bhavet param. Again, Trihavaram saptadinam parantu siddho naras vedayitavyukta nataparam snehanam adishanti satmi bhavet saptadinat parantu. So why these numbers are important? Trihamacham mridau koshte. In mridu koshta, 3 days are given, and in krura koshta, saptadina is given, and madhyama koshta, 5 days are given for the purpose of achieving samyak siddha lakshana. What I think is, what I believe is, these numbers are not important actually. Instead, they are some attributory or arbitrary points for our anumana. For example, if you want to walk from your college to a long distance to the main road, you know that it is around 10 minutes walk, or it is 2 kilometers. So accordingly, you can adjust the speed. And if I am coming to your college and first time, and I don't know how much distance the bus stop is there, it is 2 kilometers away from your college, suppose, but I don't know. And I simply started walking, searching the bus stop. So I feel that, whether I missed the way or something like that, some doubts may come into my mind. Instead, if I ask some of you, sir, please tell how much distance is there for the bus stop, then you may say, sir, it is just 5 minutes walk from our college, or it is just 1.5 kilometers. So keeping this in our mind, if you walk, I can adjust my speed and I can expect at this time point I will reach to the bus stop. Similarly, these numbers 3 days, 5 days, and 7 days given in the text are for our arbitration. It doesn't mean that always in Mridukota, we should achieve Snehana in 3 days. And in Krurukota, we should achieve the Snehana in 7 days. Beyond 7 also possible. But Acharya says, Nata param Snehana madishanti, Satmi bhavet saptadinat param. So in this context, Chakrapani very clearly says that it is not Satmyata, achievement of Satmyata after the 7 days. In that, Acharya says, maximum duration is 7 days. But if you administer the Snehapana even after the Samyak Siddha Lakshana, then it is going to become the Satmya to the body. And you are not going to achieve the Shodhana in a proper way. So that is why, after achieving the Samyak Siddhata, we should not further proceed the Snehapana. So, from this, what we understand is that our main goal or aim is to achieve the Samyak Siddhata. Achieve the Samyak Siddhata. That is why in Dallana, in Sushruta Samhita, Acharya Dallana very clearly says that the Koshta can be divided into 3. One is Mrudutama, Mrudutara. That 1, 2, 3 days is taken. And Madhyamatara, Madhyama. 4, 5, 6 days are taken. And Kruratara and Kruratama, 7, 8, 9 days are taken. So up to 9 days also he advises. It doesn't mean that we should always go for. Till the achievement of the Samyak Siddha Lakshanas, we can administer. So maximum 9 or 10, not more than that. So 9 is sufficient. If you are not achieving Samyak Siddha even within this period, then we have to think that there is some mistake I have made in assessment of the Koshta or in fixing the dosage. Okay. So ekaham vishramya punah snehaye. Ekaham vishramya punah snehaye. So sometimes what happens is the snehana after the 8th day, the snehana is not achieved. Then and the patient didn't get the hunger. Then you can do one thing. You can do vishrama one day. Then next day again go for the larger dosage. Okay, larger dosage. Okay, that is the duration. And coming to the pattern of the Shodhananga Snehapana. So there is no clear pattern anywhere given in the Brihatrayis or Laghutrayis. So the one of the pattern like thing is mentioned in Ashtanga Hridaya, Dvabhyam Chadurubhir Ashtamir Yamir Jiranti Akramat. This is the only pattern what we see. Dvabhyam Chaturbhir Ashtabhir Yamir. Some of these scholars opines that it is the Arohana Matra, the roots, the Sutra Rupa Arohana Matra is mentioned in this sloka. 2 Yama, Chaturyama, Ashtayama. So that means 6 hours, 12 hours, and 24 hours. So this is the increasing order which is mentioned by Acharya Vagbhata. But I doubt that. Again, the Arohana Matra is mentioned mainly by Kalyanakaraka in the text written in 6th century AD. And is the first person to mention the increasing. Krama Vriddhi is mentioned. Krama Vriddhi is mentioned for the purpose of pattern of internal Snehapana. Okay, so 9 hours Matra, Madhyama Matra, and Pravara Matra. As we saw in the dosage form, according to Sushruta 9 hours Matra and Madhyama Matra by Charakacharya and Pravara Matra by Sushrutacharya. Based on these 3 matras, we can develop a Krama Vriddhi also. Okay, so I will explain how practically the Snehapana can be administered. Any one of the dose is given continuously. That is another method. All these 3 matras can be utilized for the purpose of Krama Vriddhi. Otherwise, any one of these matras also can be utilized for the purpose of the Vriddhi, Krama Vriddhi purpose. And based on the Koshta, till we get the Samyak Siddha Lakshana. So this is one of the pattern which is mentioned in the Vangasena. And in that, he says that Uttama Matra 3 pala Sneha should be given, and in the second day 3.5 pala. Every day half pala is increased. In Madhyama Matra, first day 1.5 pala, and second day 7 karsha, 8 karsha, 9 karsha, and 10 karsha, and 11 karsha increase. Like that, karsha vriddhi. But I feel that this is not sufficient for the purpose of the Shodhananga purpose, because if you go through the dosage form, it seems like that less than Avara Matra also. So we cannot depend on this pattern for the purpose of the Shodhananga Snehapana. What we should observe while administering the Shodhananga Snehapana, we have to, of course, we have to observe for the Jiryamana Lakshana, which is mentioned in the Sushru Samhita and again in Ashtanga we can see. So Pachyamane Drid Daha Brahma Sada Aratiklam. And they are very interesting features or lakshanas which indicates that the dosage form or the dose what you selected is sufficient for the purpose of the Shodhana or Shodhananga to cause Utkleshana. If the dose selected is less than this purpose, they are not going to produce these lakshanas. Trita, Daha, Brahma, Sada, Arati, Klama. These lakshanas will not be seen if the dose is very less, even you administer in a particular kala for the purpose of Shodhananga Snehapana. So then we should think that if these lakshanas during the Jiryamana Avastha, these lakshanas are not seen, we should think that our dosage is very less. Generally what happens is when the Sneha crosses the blood-brain barrier, we can see this Brahma, Sada, Arati, Klama, Lakshana, etc. So that is why if your dose quantity of Sneha is sufficient or proper, then we can see these Pachyamana Avastha, these Lakshanas we can see in the Jiryamana Avastha. Jirna Jirna Vishankayam Punar Ushnodakam Pipet. So there is one more guidelines is given is after administration of the Snehapana, when to drink the rice porridge. And after the Kshuddha Pradurbhava, we have to administer the rice porridge or peya or vileti. But sometimes what happens is during Snehapana, because of the large quantity of Snehadravya, sometimes the body may mimic hunger. The patient feels there some burning sensation or some discomfort in the stomach and he misunderstand it as Kshuddha Pradurbhava. And in such case, if you take the rice porridge, peya, surely it will end up in ajirna and sometimes he may vomit also. So that is why Acharya says that jirna jirna vishankayam. This is a marker or a test. Jirna jirna vishankayam punarushnodakam pibe. So if you feel jirnavastha or ajirnavastha, whatever it may be, drink ushnodaka. Again drink ushnodaka. So what is the importance of this ushnodaka? After the intake of the ushnodaka, what happens? If you have the udgara with the smell of the snehadravya, that means that the sneha is not digested. After the drinking ushnodaka, if the udgara is very clear, only water is there and there is no smell of snehadravya, then it indicates that the sneha is digested. So that is why before taking ahara, we have to advise the patient to drink little more ushnodaka, half glass of ushnodaka and wait for 10 minutes. Even when the patient feels that discomfort in the stomach, like some burning sensation, at that time also you can advise the patient to drink one half glass of water. So generally, if it is not a proper hunger, then it will subside. Otherwise, there will be Shuddhodgara, then later he can have the ahara. Whether snana is important before ahara, so it is not mandatory, but in text it says that if you get the Shuddha, you can have the snana, then you can go for the ahara. But we should be very cautious if you advise the patient to take snana, because if the patient have not achieved the Shuddha properly and you advise the patient to take snana, then it may end up in the achieve. So that is why it is always better to avoid the snana before taking the ahara. Instead, we can advise the patient to take snana before Snehapana itself and observe for the samyak sigdha lakshana, vatanlomyam deeptogni varchas snigdam samhatam. So that we will see in the next slide. And observe for the atisnigdha lakshana, asnigdha lakshana, and any of the vyapas. So we have to see the asnigdha lakshana, purisham gradidam ruksham vayur apragrunumutu pakta kharatum rauksham ja gatrasya asnigdha lakshanam. So I'm not going to detail into these lakshanas, but I will explain the samyak snigdha lakshana. Vatanulomyam deepto agni varchas snigdam asamhatam madhavam snigdhatam change snigdhanam upayajayate. How these lakshanas are assessed in the body. So to assess these lakshanas, we have to see, physically examine, the Vaidya himself has to physically examine the patient every day. That is very important. Before Snehapana and after Snehapana in the evening. Then only we can elicit these lakshanas. One is Vatanulomana. Vatanulomana can be understood by proper Mala Pravritti or proper Mutra Pravritti or Udgara Pravritti. So if this is not happening, then we can understand that Vatanulomana is not started. Generally, after the starting of Snehapana, for the first 2 days, the patient may not pass the toilets. Practically it is seen. But third day onwards, he start to get the motion. So we can attribute this towards the Vatanulomana. And Deepto Agni, how you understand the Agni Diki? So while explaining the practical method of administering Snehapana, I will show how Agni Deepti is there. There are certain tools also developed by researchers like Agnibala Index and all. But in day-to-day practice also, you can understand the Agni Deepti. For example, if you administer Sneha around 50 ml today, and okay. And if, for example, if you have taken the Snehapana 50 grams, 50 ml in the 1 day, and that Sneha got digested in 3 hours, 4 hours, suppose. Next day, you have given 60 ml of Snehapana, and that Sneha has digested in 3 hours. That means that even after increase of the dosage, the time taken to digest is less. That means because your Agni is very strong. Okay, so like that also we can understand the Deepta Agni. Varchas Snigdhata and the Asamhata Varchas. These are the two parameters we have to observe. Varchas Snigdhata, we can see the oiliness on the stool. There are different methods we can adopt. One is we can collect the stool in a bedpan filled with lukewarm water. Okay, so if you collect the stool during the Snehapana in a bedpan, generally you can see the oil floating if Varchas Snigdhata is there. Okay, another thing is Asamhata Varchas, or one more method for Varchas Snigdhata is easiest method. If the patient is using the hand to wash their after defecation, and you can ask the patient whether you felt some sliminess in your hand. Generally, after defecation, we did not to put without soap also your hand will be clean. There will not be any sliminess. But generally, if Varchas Snigdhata is there, and after defecation, after washing, the patient feels that some sliminess is there in my hand, and I need to put soap and clean it thoroughly to remove the sliminess. So this sliminess in the hand also indicates the Varchas Snigdhata. Then comes the Asamhata Varchas. Asamhata means the stool is not in the Samhati form, is not in the proper cylindrical form. See, there is a picture in the slide. You can see the like the cow dung you might have observed in the roadside. The cow dung will be sticking onto the road without maintaining the shape. So that can be Asamhata Varchas. Similarly, when you put the defecate, the stool will be sticking to the commode. It will not maintain its shape. That means that it is Asamhata Varchas. Mardhavam Snigdhatam Changi. There will be Anga Mardhavata will be there, and Anga Snigdhata also can be seen. These are two important factors which we need to elicit day-to-day practice. Then only we can understand whether the patient achieved Mardhavata. Because all the persons are Snehasara. Snehasaru Ayam Purusha. Some sort of Snigdhata will be always there in the human body because of default nature. If a person is Kapha Prakriti, his Anga will be very mrudu. If you examine the females, their Anga also will be mrudu. So how you understand that after Snehapana Anga Mardhavata is achieved? For that, we have to examine the patient before Snehapana also and every day also. Then only we can comparatively what changes has taken in terms of Mardavata, we can elicit properly. So that is why, to understand the Mardavata, some bulky areas where the muscle fat is more, such areas we should feel with hand every day. Then you can understand there is some Murduta is happening day by day. Similarly, the Anga Snigdhata also. So make some scratch over the body. So if line is happening, then we can say some Rukshata is there. Every day you do that, the nature of scratch changes day by day when the patient achieves the Samyak Snigdhata. Okay, so these are some of the methods to understand the Samyak Snigdha Lakshana. I will explain some tools developed by our institute in our department also at the end. Coming to the Vyapat and Chikitsa, I am not going to detail into the Vyapat, but still I will mention Tandra Sotklesha Manaham, Jarastambo Visamkyata, Kushtani Kandu, Pandutvam, Shofar Shamsi, Aruchistrisha, Jetaram Grahani Doshas, Taimityam, Vakya Nigraha, Shula, Ama Pradoshascha, Jayanti, Sneha Vibrama. So, Akale Atimatrecha, Mityahara Viharacha. So, these are the causes why the Snehapana end up in Vyapat. Due to Akala Snehapana, Amatra Snehapana, Mityahara following during the Snehapana, then it will end up in the Vyapats like Tandra, Utklesha, Anaha, Jwara, Tamba, Visamjnata, Kushta, Kandu, Pandutta, Shofa, Arsha, Aruji, Trisha, Jatara Dosha, Grahani Dosha, and Staimitya, Vakya Nigraha, Shula, Ama Pradosha Javyadi. And these lakshanas, these diseases are produced by the Sneha Vyapa. The major treatment for these lakshanas are nothing but the Kala Pratikshana. That is what I feel. Just wait to subside these lakshanas, at least for 2 to 3 hours. If it is not reduced by this time, then do some intervention. If the patient feels much discomfort during this period itself, then also you can go for the some interventions. Ullekhanam, Vamana is one of the methods. So I had an experience with one of my our own staff at a college. So I was doing Snehapana for him. He was having very Avara Sattva, or he was not Klesha Saha, we can say, Sukumara person. So during the Snehapana, every day when we increase the dosage, and I'm very strict about the dietary restrictions of this Snehapana. So every day when we increase the dosage from with the difficulty he was taking, and on the 4th day, after taking around 100 or 110 or 120 ml, very minimum dosage form, by evening around 6 o'clock, he telephoned me, sir, I'm having some discomfort. I'm feeling of very discomfort in the chest and feeling of vomiting and all. I can't tolerate these things. So then I told you, wait and drink little Shunti Dhanyaka Jala, because almost all the complications arises due to Snehapana can be managed with the Shunti Dhanyaka Jala. So I advised him to take Shunti Dhanyaka Jala. And later, after 15-20 minutes, his wife telephoned me and told, sir, he is very much panic and not able to tolerate, very difficult to manage. So I went to his home. When I see he was in a very different mood, then I told her, his wife to make some Ushnodaka and dissolve salt in that. So Saindava Jala, instead of Saindava Jala, normal salt water was prepared, and I made him to drink this salt water frequently, around 2-3 glasses of salt water, and he vomited. Like that, 2-3 times made him to vomit. After this vomiting, he becomes normal, and Snehapana was interrupted. So this Ullekhanam is very important if at all any Sneha Ajirna happens. Sneha Ajirna happens. Okay. So in that case, it might have turned to Sneha Ajirna. Sneha Ajirna can be because of improper time food intake also, or might have taken some other food stuff also, or sometimes a mental factor also, the psychological factor also very important to cause the Sneha Ajirna. The acceptance of Sneha also depends on psychological factor. So Sweda can be administered, and Samsana also, Takra, Arishta Prayoga, etc. Rukshapana Navetanam, and Pinyaka, Kali, etc. Mutra, Trifala, etc. can be utilized, which causes generally Rukshana, or which are generally Ruksha in nature. Okay, so that can be utilized for the purpose of the Vyapat Chikitsa. How to practically administer the Snehapana. So always you should remember that before administering Snehapana, we should consider Koshta, we should consider Agni, Vyadi, Vyadita, and Kala. Okay, the Koshta we should understand Agni, Vyadi, Vyadita, nature of disease, nature of the patient or Bala of the patient, and Kala. Kala, in the sense, the Vaya of the patient also comes under Kala. The morning, evening, that Kala also we should consider, and also Ushna Shita Kala, that also we should consider. Okay, depending on that, we have to administer the Snehapana. So divide the Koshta. So you know that Murdu Koshta, Virechana happens even with a mild Dravyas, even with the Shirena Api Virichati. While drinking milk itself, the patient gets the Virechana Vega, that means he is having Murdu Koshta. Administer the mild purgatives like laxatives like avibhatti or draksha rasa in a medium dose, then if the patient gets virechana, then it can be considered as madhyama. In a mild dose, nothing is going to happen in madhyama koshta. And in krura koshta, even trivrit or avibhatti churnam is given more than 50 ml or 50 gram, nothing is going to happen. Such koshta is considered, can be considered as krura koshta. So already we have seen Mridu Koshta 3 days and Madhyama Koshta 5 days and Krura Koshta within 7 days. So this is the numbers mentioned for the purpose of arbitration. Okay. Dose calculation. How we have to calculate the dose. So this is what we call as Yamavriddhi method. This is the practically what we have doing in our institute. And based on this, we have developed a study also, and we have prepared an Android app also for this purpose. But still, the app validation is going on, so that is why it's not available in the Play Store. And day 1, Sneha that should digest in 3 hours. We have to calculate Sneha with digest in 3 hours. Every day you can increase 3 hours. That means Yama Vriddhi. That means the second day, the Sneha, which digests in 6 hours, should be administered. And on third day, the Sneha, which digests in 9 hours, should be administered. And in fourth day, Sneha digests in 12 hours. Fifth day, 15 hours. And sixth day, 18 hours. And on seventh day, the Sneha, which digests in 24 hours, should be administered. So here you can see Dwabhyam Chaturubhi Rashtabhyam. 6 hours, 12 hours, and 24 hours. We can see that pattern. And if you see 9 hours of Sushruta and Madhyama Matra of Charaka 12 hours and Uttama Matra of Vagbhadacharya 24 hours. That also comes in this pattern. So that is why this is a very beautiful pattern and practically easy to administer also. And we have validated this method also by doing some research studies. So for example, Rasyasi Matra. Rasyasi Matra is a Matra mentioned by Acharya as a test dose. So we can consider the first day dose as Rasyasi Matra and minimum dosage. Minimum dosage is administered. So we can, if the patient is having very strong hunger, go up to 30 ml, or we don't feel that much of hunger is there, then go for 20 ml or 25 ml. No matter, not less than that. So 30 ml of Sneha is given in the day 1, and generally we think that this 30 ml should digest in 3 hours. Instead, the patient had good hunger, so it got digested in 2 hours. So that means that per hour digested Sneha is 30 divided by 2, that is 15 ml. 1 hour, 15 ml, that means 2 hours, 30 ml. Like that, per hour Sneha should be calculated. The next day dosage should be calculated for the 6 hours. I mentioned Yamavriddhi, 3 hours, 6 hours, 9 hours, 12 hours. So next day dose is 6 hour dosage. That means per hour digested Sneha into 6 hours. 15 into 6, that means the second day dosage will be 90 ml. This 90 ml we calculated for 6 hours. That means we thought that this 90 ml will digest in 6 hours. instead it got digested in 5 hours, because the human body is a biological system. We cannot keep it in the within a box or within restricted borders. So that is why sometimes it may digest in, if the hunger or the Dipanapachana was proper, then the Agni Vriddhi will be there. So that is why it gets digested earlier also. So 90 ml got digested in 5 hours, and per hour digested Sneha is 18 ml. So next day dosage, what we need to calculate is 9 hours into 18. Per hour Sneha for 9 hours we are going to give. That means 162 ml is the third day dosage. So approximately we can take 160 ml. If it is 168, we can approximately take at 170. But here it is 162, so take approximately to the nearest round figure. So 160 ml is given. And this 160 ml gets digested in 6 hours. Here also you can see 90 ml 5 hours, 160 ml only 6 hours. That means that the patient is having the proper Agni Vriddhi. Dose increases, but the time is not doubling or not increasing as proportionate. It is inversely proportionate. So that means Agni Vriddhi is there. So per hour digested Sneha is 26.66. That means approximately 26 ml. So next day dosage is 12 hours. 12 hours into 26. That means 312 ml. Like that, everyday dosage we can calculate up to 24 hours. From 12 hours, 16 hours, sorry, there is a mistake. 15 hours it is. From 12 hours, we have to go for the, yes, correct, not mistake. It is 15 hours, 18 hours, then we can go for the 24 hours. Okay, so from 18 hours, it is not Yama Vriddhi, we are directly jumping to the 24 hours. Why? Because during this period, during the course of this Snehapana, when it comes to 6th day or 5th day, there will be tremendous increase of the Agni. So that is why if you increase 6 hours also, there is no problem is going to happen. So that is why the final dosage comes 1, 3, 4, 4. This is only when if the patient is not achieved Snehapana during these first 6 days or 5 days or 4 days. So if it is reaching up to 7th day, then the dose will be 1, 3, 4, 4. Okay. So this is an example I am quoted. So when you administer in patient, this may be different also. So in between, if any time you get Samyak Siddha Lakshana, you can stop the Snehapana. The one of the added benefit of this method is unknowingly or without our knowledge, we are considering the Agni here. That is why this Krama Vriddhi or Yama Vriddhi comes important. Okay. Similarly, as I mentioned in the previous slide while explaining the dosage form, so these 3 9 hours, Madhyama Matra 12 hours, and 24 hours can be considered for a planning of a pattern. This is the example. And each alone also can be utilized for the purpose of Arohana Matra. For example, if you are selecting 9 hours of Snehapana, as per Sushruta's opinion, because the patient Bala is less, Agni is less, then what we have to do? Calculate the Snehapana dose 30 ml, and per hour dosage you calculated as 15 ml because it got digested in 2 hours. So this 15 into 9 should be given. Always we should multiply the dosage for 9 hours. Okay, so that means 15 into 9, 90, and 90, 135 ml will come for the second day dosage. And this second day dosage got digested in 5 hours, and calculate the per hour digested Sneha, that into 9 hours. Always multiply with 9 hours. Similarly, if you are selecting Madhyama Matra of Acharya Charaka, then always multiply with 12. If it is Uttama Matra of Vakbata, always multiply with 24. Okay, like that also we can do the fix the dosage form. I think some so here I have So here I have kept an animation. That means already there will be some amount of sneha is there in the body. And every day when we administer the sneha little by little, the body gets snigdhata increasing little by little in the body. And finally, when you achieve the samyak snigdhata, the entire body gets saturated with the sneha. Okay. And coming to the importance of kleda, this is very important. Why this Shodhananga Sneha becomes important? So this is a quotation from Charaka Samhita, Grahani Chikitsa. Chikitsasthana, 15th chapter, Grahani Chikitsa. Diva Prabudhade Arkena, Hridayam Pundarikavat. So in that context, Acharya Charaka says that the Hridaya is like a Pundarikavat, like a Pundarika flower, like a lotus. In the Diva Prabudhade Arkena, in the daytime, the Pundarika or the lotus gets closer due to the Arka. I think some lines are coming on the slide. Hello?
Hello.
Hello? Hello? Organization? It's gone now. Okay. Diva Prabudhate Arkena Hridayam Pundarikva. Like in the daytime, due to the Arka Rashmi, the lotus plant blossoms. Similarly, due to the Arka, the Hridaya also gets opened. Tasmin Vibhuddhe Srotam. Putatvam Yanti. Similarly, the Srotasas also gets opened and becomes clear. Vyayamat cha viharacha cha vikshitva cha chetasaha na kledam upagachanti diva tenasya dhatavaha. So due to vyayama, vihara, vikshipta chetasa, etc., there will not be kledas achieved in the body. So here Acharya says that during the night time, ratrau tu hridaye glani samvrte yanti koshte parikledam samvrte. So during the daytime, the kleda will not be restored in the body due to vyayama, vihara, or due to the arkarashmi, like in lotus plant, because the heart will be, or the srotas will be kept open. But in night time, like the lotus closes during night, similarly the hridaya also gets closes, glana, and samvrita, all the srotas gets constricted. Because of that, the kleda will be restored in the body. This is a reference you can see in the Grahani Chikitsa of Charaka Samhita. So that is why this can be understood in the context of Snehapana also. Why we are making Arohana Matra Snehapana or Snehapana in the morning hours. Why we are giving in the morning hours, early morning hours, Snehapana is administered. Why not in the Ratri? Okay. So this person, see the person who is the yellow marked part is the Sneha, because all the Purusha are Sneha Saro Ayam Purusha. There will be already some amount of Sneha will be there in the body. What happens on the day of Snehapana, after administration of Snehapana, the Sneha slightly increases in the body. Okay. Previously it was for a little portion, and after the Snehapana, the Sneha or Snigdhata, or we can say intent, Kledata. Yasya dravyasya kledane shakti is a Snigdha. So the Kledata in the body slightly increased. But what happens is, during the day-to-day activities or some vihara what we have doing, and due to the arkamshu, ushnata of the kala, what happens is there will be reduction of Snehapana in the body by evening. That will reduce. Morning, after administration of Snehapana, the Sneha increase, but by evening, again it slightly reduces. And this Siddha Guna will be maintained during the night time because of the Soma, Shita Guna of Soma, and the closing of the Hridaya and the Srotas, the Kleda will be retained in the body. So the reduced Sneha in the body, which was maintained during the night also. And next day, when you administer the Snehapana, it further increases because the dose of Sneha is on the second is increased. Though the Snigdhata achieved in the body or the kleda achieved in the body also increases. But again, during the evening time, the kleda slightly reduces. But this was comparatively more than the previous day. And this increased Sneha will be maintained during the night time. And again, in the next day morning, when you administer the Snehapana in the morning hours, again, the Sneha increases when compared to the previous day. But again, in the evening, that slightly reduces. And that will be maintained in the night time. Similarly, in the next day morning, the Sneha gets entire body and body gets saturated. That means the body achieves the Samyak Siddha Lakshana. Why the Sneha is to be administered in the morning? Because during the night time, the kledata is maintained in the body, and to that kledata, before it gets reduced in the morning or in the daytime, that due to the Agni Pradurbhava or due to the Arkamsura Rashmi, the kleda Shoshana may happen. Before that, we are adding further kledana to that or snehana to that kleda to increase the kleda from its normal. So that is why the Snehapana for the purpose of Utkleshana or Shodhananga Snehapana should be in the early morning before Shuddha Pradurbhava. Once the Shuddha Pradurbhava is happened, the Agni increases. Because of the Ushnaguna of Agni, the kleda Shoshana may happen. Or else, if the day progresses, due to the Surya also, so that is why we have to add kledana to the previous day's kleda to increase it. Like that, it's a very gradual and systematic and very scientific method of increasing kledata in the body. The kledata can be increased at once also. If you administer around 1000 ml of Sneha at once to a patient, suddenly the patient may get kledata in the body. And of course, it will end up in some complications. But with this method, the kleda, increase of kleda we will achieve. At the same time, it is not going to produce any sort of complications in the some of the observations during the Snehapana. This is the practical observations, what we have seen in the regular practice of Sneha. Third day onwards, there will be Agni Deepti will be there, generally seen on the third day onwards. And Koshta Snigdhata before Tot Snigdhata is achieved. So generally, Koshta Snigdhata is achieved at first and later only we can achieve the Tot Snigdhata. Acharya, even after achieving the Koshta Snigdhata, we have to complete and Koshta Snigdhata doesn't mean that Adhastha Sneha Darshanam always, because sometimes if you mistake the dosage form, if you increase the dosage form without seeing the Koshta and Agni, then also the patient may get the Adhastha Sneha Darshanam. That is a Vyapat actually. Staturia can be seen, the Sneha mixed with the stool because of Ajirna. So it is not a proper Sneha. So that is why there are certain practices like doubling the dosage. For example, first day 30 ml, second day 60 ml, third day 120 ml, fourth day 240 ml. Like that, they'll double the dosage. But it is not a Arohana Matra Sneha. Wrong method of Snehapana.
कितना दे रहे हैं क्या कर रहे हैं जनरल ऐसे व्हाट्सएप पे बात कर रहे हैं ना
Yeah. I have to keep. Just a minute. Just a minute. Just a minute. Were the participants I have to make? Vivo 1907. 07,
yes, sir.
Okay. Make co-host or host.
Yes,
Is it okay?
yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Shall I continue?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
At what time I have to finish? I need
আজকে
I
24শে
think.
অগস্ট অব্দি চলবে না পুরো 1 মাস কিন্তু
Okay, coming back to our topic, there were some technical issues with Zoom. Okay, so solved. And Kosta Snigdhata by Sneha Darshana in stool can be understood. Okay, but we have to very thoroughly watching the patient, because if the Kosta Snigdhata is in on the second day, of course there is some mistake in the dose fixation. Some cases, first 2 days the patient won't pass stools. Generally it is seen because Vatanlomana might not have taken place, and generally from suddenly shifting from carbohydrate diet or the normal diet to we are shifting to Sneha and some restricted diet. Complications of Snehapana. Generally, Shunti Danigat Jala, I already mentioned, this is one of the best remedy for the almost all the complications which generally come up in between the Snehapana. Shunti Danyaka Jala. We have to ask the patient to drink Shunti Danyaka Jala and Kala Pratikshana. Before Snehapana, a thorough Rukshana is very necessary. This is very important. Why Rukshana becomes important? Because nowadays almost all the persons are Sukumara in nature and Medasara, and a lot of Sneha Dravyas they are taking, not in the form of ghee or milk, some other junk foods like that. So because of meat intake, because of that, almost all the doshas are Snigdha in nature nowadays. So that is why if you want to impart Snehana in such a Snigdha person, we have to achieve some Rukshana in the body. For example, if you take a sponge with full of water, and if you want to add one more glass of water to that, it's not possible, because if you pour water, it will just drain away. Instead, you just squeeze the sponge, remove some amount of water, then again try to pour 1 glass of water, it will absorb. Similarly, in the body, if you want to achieve the Snehana, Samyak Siddhata in the body, Priya Rukshana is very important. Okay, high doses can be given in 2 divided doses. For example, if the final dosage, final day dose comes around 500 ml or 600 ml, and by seeing 1 full glass of ghee itself, the patient may feel exhausted. So instead, and they may not be able to drink also at a stretch. In such cases, we can ask the patient to take it in divided dose. Take 250 ml first, ask him to drink, and give some gap for 10, 15 or 20 minutes. Then again give the second dose. Okay, not more than 1 hour. So if you, once the previous dose started to get digested, if you administer the second dose, that will end up in some ajirna. So that is why some gap should be, minimum gap should be given, can be given. Jirna Vishankayam Punarushnoodakam Pivet. I already mentioned what is the importance of Ushnodaka. Otherwise, during Snehapanam, it is not mandatory to administer the Ushnodaka. But for maintaining the bala of the patient, we can advise the patient to drink Ushnodaka. But it should be in very minimum quantity, but frequently we can advise. Because if after Snehapana, for example, if the patient has taken 80 ml of Snehapana, and if you advise the patient to drink Ushnodaka 1 glass, surely he is going to vomit. So that is why after intake of ghee, advise the patient to take Ushnodaka very little, 1 or 2 sips, that is sufficient. But very frequently, every 15 or 20 minutes or 30 minutes, you can ask the patient to drink. This will help to reduce the thirst. At the same time, it will help to digest the ghee also and maintain the bala of the patient. The patient won't feel tiredness, even he is not taken food even up to evening also. Okay. And if he feels hunger, at that time, ask the patient to drink half glass of water or 1 glass of hot water to check the Udgara Shuddhi. Okay. And nausea. If the patient is having nausea during Snehapanam or while taking Snehapanam, we have to administer the Ardraka to chew or lemon to smell or taste. This will help to reduce the nausea. The another thing, if the patient is not Sneha Dvisha in nature, patient is not able to tolerate the smell, etc., then there's some modification we can do. Ask the patient to close their eyes or keep some iPad covering the eyes and keep some strong cells, deodorants or scents over the nostril, some eucalypt oil, something near the nostrils. Then ask the patient to drink the ghee. So this will make them used to drink. Sneha with honey and Saindava. This is a experiment what we have doing in our institute. For example, if especially for children, if you want to administer Sneha, it is very difficult. For example, if you administer the Tikta Gritam or Indugandha Gritam, 20 ml they may take. If when the next day, if it is 40 ml, it is very difficult for them to drink because by seeing itself they feel to vomit. By the smell also they feel to vomit. At that time, what I thought is some modification we need to make because the acceptance of Sneha is one of the key points in achievement of the Samyak Siddhata. Okay, so that is why to make them accept, we thought that the Sneha should be mixed with honey and Saindava. Honey, 1 teaspoon of honey and 1 pinch of Saindava. To that, add Sneha little by little and mix as in the Vasti Mishrana. So its nature, the shining nature of Sneha will reduce and smell also slightly. Some sweet smell will come. Smell also slightly changes. So there is some increased acceptance we have seen in children with this method. The food only when the hunger is there. Okay, so how the food should be? Dravoshna manabhishyanti nati snigdam asankaram. This is very important. Drava ushna anabhishyanti and and it should be nati snigdha and asankara in nature. Only when the patient gets hunger. And sometimes the digestion may look like mimicking the hunger during the Jiryamana Lakshana. Okay, so at that time, drink the water and check for the hunger. If hunger persists, ask the patient to drink kanyi or peya. Sometimes, especially the Western patient, they may not feel the hunger. They don't know what is hunger. But sometimes they may sit up to, after taking 30 ml of ghee, they may sit up to evening, 4 o'clock. But it is not proper to analyze. So that is why in such patients, we have to ask them very clearly whether you feel hunger. They say, I don't feel hunger. Then you have to ask whether you feel some discomfort in the stomach, some sort of burning sensation. Then say no. Then you ask whether you feel severe weakness. Then they may say that, yes, I feel weakness, but not feeling hunger. At that time also you can administer the aha. And food as per section. Drava Ushna Madhyastandi, Nati Snigdha Asankara. Okay. So Drava Ushna Ahara should be given always. Sorry. Coming to the last part of study, the presentation. So there are two research already happened in our institute. One is the development and validation of a tool to assess the Samyak Siddha Lakshana in healthy volunteers. Actually, while doing Snehapana, in our department itself, we have 4 faculties. Each of them assess the Snehapana in different methods. And the Samyak Siddha assessment also varies. So that is why we thought that a validated tool, a systematically, scientifically validated tool should be developed to assess the Samyak Siddha Lakshana. So that is why we thought that this Yama Vriddhi method, 3 hours, 6 hours, 9 hours, 12 hours, 15 hours, 18 hours, 24 hours, this Krama Yama Vriddhi method should be validated and developed into a tool. So that is why we developed a tool in proper psychometry method. Psychometry is the science where the development of tools or study of measuring of immeasurables. For that, we developed the tool. These tool developments comes under the psychometry. Following the proper psychometric methods, we developed a tool and it was a success. Now sent for the publication. And in that, around 6 parameters are found very important, like Vatanlomana, Agnidipti, Snigdhavarcha, Asammatavarcha, and Samhata Anga Madhavata, Siddha Anga, and these are the first 6 parameters that was found as very important and found a very good correlation with the tool. And later 3 like Klama, Anga Madhavata, and Anga Samhati. All these things are considered as very less important, but when compared to the other lakshanas, these were found very important. Okay. So in this tool, given the grading for different lakshanas like 0 to 1, and based on the score achieved on the each day, we grade that into the score from 12 to 20. So based on this grade, we can classify the Snehana. This is the importance of this tool. We can grade the Snehana into, we can just a minute. Pratibha, we can grade the Samyak Snigdhata into Pravara Snigdhata, Madhyama Snigdhata, and Avara Snigdhata. Okay. And Pravara Snigdhata, Madhyama Snigdhata, and Avara Snigdhata means the Samyak Snigdhata itself can be graded into 3. That is what my opinion. And based on that, we could achieve that also with this tool. Pravara Snigdhata doesn't, Avara Snigdhata doesn't mean that it is Ayoga. It is Avara Samyak Snigdhata, because there is a guidelines in the context of Vamana Virechana, Samyak Shuddhi. While explaining the Shuddhi Prakara, Chaturvimshada Shuddhi Prakara, Acharya classified this Samyak Shuddhi itself into 3. Pravara Shuddhi, Madhyama Shuddhi, and Avara Shuddhi. Similarly, this Samyak Snehana, Samyak Siddha Lakshana can be divided into 3. One is Pravara Samyak Shuddhi, Madhyama Samyak Shuddhi, and Avara Samyak Shuddhi. Why this is important? Because there are certain set of diseases, Kushta, etc. conditions, in that Acharya.
Vibinshi et al.
Nati Snigdhan Vishodeyat. Nati Snigdhan Vishodeyat. So, what do you mean by Nati Snigdha? Na Ati Snigdha. Always Ati Snigdha is contraindicated for Shodhana. It is a Vyapat of Snehapana. So, we are not going to consider at all for Shodhana, Ati Snigdha. Then why Acharya mentions Nati Snigdha? So, that means that Samyak Snigdha, Pravara Snigdha, and Madhyama Snigdha is not required in that condition. Instead, we have to achieve Avara Samyak Snigdha. So that is why we tried to classify it into 3, and we could achieve that also. And this was done in our department as a part of PG study by Dr. Kadambari and in my guide sheet. And later here we have done a study to validate this. There is a method called criterion validation. So the developed tool to make it more strong or strength, more reliable, we can further validate that tool against a existing tool. Okay, so we thought we should validate these parameters or this developed Samyak Siddha assessment tool developed by Kadambari with the help of Dermolab combo and Sudan microscopy of stool. Okay, so this is done by Dr. Vipin Shah. That's a spelling mistake. It's not Vipin Shi, it is Vipin Shah at all. In my guidance. So here we use the Dermolab combo. It's a instrument where we can see trans-epidermal water loss. We can calculate the sebum content of the skin. We can skin hydration, calculate the skin hydration, elasticity, etc. So all these factors are somewhat similar to our Mardavata, Anga Snigdhata, and Siddha Angata, etc. Okay. One more thing what we have did in, we have added one more test to this is the Sudan microscopy of the stool. The stool will be examined every day with the Sudan stain, after staining with the Sudan stain, and microscopically it will be examined, and the fat globules in the stool will be calculated every day. So initial day, of course, because of our diet, there will be some amount of fat globules. Sometimes we can see in the stool. Just count the numbers, large globules and small globules. And after Snehapanam, every day, the globules will be calculated. We can see a very gradual increase on the fat globules in the stool. When at the day of Samyak Siddha, we can see a lot of fat globules in the stool examination. Okay, so now we are trying to make an equation based on the stool fat globule back to the Samyak Siddha Lakshana. Based on this equation, we can confirm the Samyak Siddha Lakshana in the body. Okay, so this is the two things what we are doing and done in our department. And After Snehana, of course, there should be Shodhananga. After Shodhananga Snehapana, we should not allow the patient, we leave the patient like that. Of course, there should be Swedana should be done, and Vyadyanusara, Haturanusara, Kalanusara Swedana can be taken. I'm not going to detail to the Swedana. And after that, of course, the patient should be advocated for the Shodhana. So coming to the action of Snehana and Swedana in the body. Sneho anilam hanti mrudu karoti deham. So it reduces the vata in the body and mrudu karoti deham. Makes madhavata of the deham. Siktasya sukshmeshu ayaneshu leenam svedastu dosham mayati dravatam. So the sneha dravyas which reaches up to the sukshmayana, sukshma srotas also, and removes the leena doshas. So help to detach the doshas from the surface. How the sneha is going?
Yeah, sak moda mansa.
How the sneha going to detach the dosha from the sroto surface of srotas? I will give a very simple example from your day-to-day life. When you purchase a steel plate, there will be a sticker on the plate. Generally, you might have seen. So how you remove that? You can try peeling off, but some amount of paper will stick. Some amount will come out. So if you want to remove it completely, you can do one thing. You can scrape it with some sharp instrument, like some spoon or a knife. So you can completely remove the sticker from the plate. But same time, it will cause the scratch over the bottom. So that is why if the proper Purakarma is not there and Shakagata dosha are not brought to the Koshta, and if you try to Shodhana, that will end up in the Ashrayasyahi Nashaya, like Falada Madrasaniva. You can recollect that simile. Similarly, if you try to remove the sticker with a sharp instrument or a knife or a spoon by scratching, the sticker will be removed, but at the same time, there will be a lot of scratches produced on the surface of the plate. Then how effectively we can remove this? So you just heat the plate like in Swedana, and just mild heat is sufficient. Then you can just peel off the sticker easily. But still some amount of gum will be remaining there. If you are not removing that properly, after some time there will be a stain mark will be produced on the plate. So how this also will be easily removed? Apply some oil over that stain or the gum and wash it with the warm water. It will be completely cleaned. Similarly, during the Snehapana, the Srotolina or Dhatulina doshas will be detached, and with the Sweda, they will be liquefied, and with the Shodhana, they will be removed. That is why Acharya Sushruta says, Sneha klina, Dhatu samstascha dosha, Sustanasta, Echa margeshu lina, Samyak Swede yojitai, Te dravatvam prapta, Postam Shodhane yantyashisham. Sneha klina, with the Sneha kledana, Dhatu samstascha dosha, the Dhatu sthanagata doshas or Dhatu lina doshas, Sustanasta or the doshas which are situated in the Sustanas, Margeshu lina or the doshas which are situated in the Margas or the Srotasas, Samyak Swede Yojite Ste Dravat. With the proper application of Swedana, that gets Dravatva, and Koshtam reaches the Koshta and can be removed. One more beautiful quotation from Bela Samhita. In that Acharya says, Snehaner Vyadida Sthanat Rasaishcha Pyadigi Krita Sweda Murdukrita Santa Sotasamcha Samagata. So Snehana, what Snehana is going to do? Snehana is going to do Vyadida Sthanat Rasaishcha Pyadigi Krita. In the Vyadida Sthana or in the Vyadisthana, in the target tissue, it is going to increase the rasa. Rasaishcha Pyadikikata. It is going to increase the rasa there. That means it causes utkleshana in the Vyadisthana. Sweda mrudukrita santa. Srotasamcha samagata. And when during the Swedana, the Srotas gets mrudu and which comes to the Koshta. And it can be removed. So this is very important. Snehane Vyadida Sthana Rasaishcha Pyadikikata. Vyadidasthana rasa vriddhi, Vyadidasthana dosha utkleshana is the action of the Sneha. But if you consider the plain Grita and Samskarita Grita, there comes the importance of this debate. If you do the Snehana with a plain Grita, of course, it will produce the Utkleshana or Samyak Siddhata we can achieve in the body. But we have to doubt that whether this plain Grita is going to do the Utkleshana in the Vyadidasthana. I feel that it's not going to do Utkleshana in that particular target tissue. Instead, if you are doing the Adhikarana Yukta Snehadravya, for example, the Snehadravya which is mentioned in Kushta Adhikarana itself for the purpose of Shodhananga Snehapana, of course, if it is not administered based on Kala Pramana, it will produce the Shamana. But if you properly fix the dose and administer in proper Kala for the Shodhananga purpose, of course, it is going to increase the dosha or utkleshana or rasa in the Vyadidasthana, that target Kushta tissue in the body. There comes the importance of this Samskarita Sneha for the purpose of the Shodhananga Sneha. Okay. And by these words, I am ending up my presentation. Namatra matram apyatra kinjid agamavarjitam. So I always say in my presentation at the end, owing to the old gurus, this is borrowed from Vagbhadacharya, because he says namatra matram apyatra kinjid agamavarjitam. There is even each and every point which is mentioned in my text is not my own, it is borrowed from my elders or the ancestors. Similarly, I also pray to Lord Dhanvantari. Whatever I presented today in front of you people is not from my side, it is from the text or from my teachers or from shared by my valuable patients. At these difficult times of COVID, I pray to Lord Dhanvantari to give you long life and strength to fight against Corona as a Corona warrior and help the suffering humanity with the grace of Ayurveda. And I wish you Hitayu and Sukhayu. Okay, so there is a Facebook page called Panchakarmiya Siddhi in my name, run by me, and you can see some previous talks of my on Vamana and all. You can just go through the Panchakarmiya Siddhi Facebook page. And Shodhaniya Siddhi is a small textbook written by myself and my wife, my teacher, Dr. Prakash Sharma from Jaipur. And this is a practical guidelines for the Shodhana or the quantified form of Shodhana mentioned. There is no shloka, it's generally for practitioners and those who wish to practice. Okay, it's a very small book available in Amazon also. Okay, thank you. Thank you again for the organizers for giving me an opportunity to share some of my viewpoints on Shodhananga Snehapana in this platform. And thanks to Principal Dr. Das sir and Coordinator Badrinath sir. And there is a suggestion from my side. Always before starting the presentation, ask all the audience to mute the mics, because this is very much irritating while presenting. And I think the organizers should take the host responsibility there, and you can mute, you can deny the permission for the participants to unmute their mic. So in Zoom, it is provision is there. Okay, thank you very much. Now I expect some of the questions or some experience sharing or some suggestions.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Sorry for the disturbing all. Next time we will do corrections, sir. Sir, it was a very wonderful and knowledgeable session, sir. You said so many practical application. It will help out to our next coming practice, sir. Sir, some questions are there, sir. Shall we discuss?
Sure.
First question from Dr. Ajay Kumar Acharya. Whether Sadhya Snehapana can give in Bahudosha Avastha if patient is Krusha?
Yes, it's possible. For the purpose of Shodhana also, we can administer the Sadhya Snehana, but we can't expect the amount of Utkleshana similar to that of Achapana, which is caused by Achapana. Okay. Otherwise, if the patient is not able to consume the Sneha as such and very reluctant Sneha Dusha in nature, in such condition, of course, we can go for some Sadhya Snehana yogas.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
For the purpose of Shodhananga, we should observe the Kala, very important. Before Kshudha Pradurбhava, we should administer, even it is Sadhya Snehana Yoga. And the dose also, it should be Madhyama Matra or 9 hours Matra or Uttama Matra.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Next question, sir. From Deepak Hadagli. Sir, how much quantity of Shunti Dhanyaka should be used?
Shunti Dhanyaka, like Paniya preparation, we can boil. There is no, like Jeera water, what you are preparing, Dhania water, what you are preparing in the home. Similarly, Shunti Dhanyaka should be boiled and kept. And if at all required, you can drink little by little, 1 or 2 sips. Instead of Ushnodaka, you can use the Ushna Shunti Dhanyaka Jala. That's it.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Next question from Deepak Hadagli. Sir, in case of Uttama Matra Snehapana of 7th day, patient doesn't feel hungry, but feel weakness in this scenario. What should be the next plan, sir?
On the 7th day.
Sir, 7th.
See, generally it won't happen only on 7th day. The patient is not able to judge the hunger, that will be there from the first day itself. Okay. So if only on the 7th day, if a patient is not feeling hunger and feeling discomfort, that means that we have to ensure that the patient is not having any comorbidities like diabetes and etc. or severe gastritis. Then if these comorbidities are not there, then you can go for some of the Kala Pratikshana. You can wait little more time. And if the weakness is too much, ask the patient to drink little more water. Generally, weakness in such conditions reduces. If still weakness is there, you ask the patient to drink little rice cooked water. When not the rice as such, only the water portion of that peya should be advised. And 1 glass or half glass can be given. Generally, the weakness reduces. If hunger is there properly, the weakness may not reduce. Then you can further he feel hunger or weakness. Then you advise him to take proper peya.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Next question from Dr. Shobha M. Namaste, sir. After 3rd day of Snehapana, is there necessary of Vatanulomana before administrating Sneha?
No. So if you are adopting this Yama Vriddhi method, generally first day the patient may not feel the defecation. 2nd day also you may not see. On 3rd day onwards, generally we have seen the patient start to defecate the stools. So the first itself you can advise the patient. Initial 2 days you may not get the normal stool movement. So on 2nd day onwards, 3rd day onwards you may get. So you did not to wait for that. According to the hunger, per-hour digested sneha, you can fix the dosage for the next day. So there is a added benefit of this Yama Vriddhi method. So next day, of course, he will get the one or the another lakshanas of the Samyak Siddhartha. Like a Vatan Lomana may happen on the 4th day, and Adastha Sneha Darshana may happen in the 5th day. Like that, day by day, you can see one or the other lakshanas.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Next question from Deepak Hadagli. Sir, what's the impact of Snehapana on blood density?
What's the impact of?
Snehapana on blood density.
Blood density. So generally, see, there are many studies has taken place. So as I mentioned, the Sneha is going to increase the kledata in the body. Kledata in the body. So Dravaguna of the Rakta, of course, there will be increase in the body. So during Rukshana, generally the acidic nature of the pH of the blood will be more towards the acidic. And during Snehapana, due to the increase of kleda, it will be more towards the alkaline in nature. So density will be becoming lesser during the progress of the Snehapana.
Okay,
And
sir.
even coming to the lipid profile also, there are some studies published from Karnataka itself. They say that during Shodhananga Snehapana, there will be elevation in the parameters, but after the Shodhana, there will be come to normal.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Next question from Dr. Kaushik Sridhar. Sir, can you explain again the importance of Samskrita Sneham for Shodhana instead of plain Sneham?
No, I 2 times already explained in 2 different contexts. Again, sure. That is very important because many of the scholars say that the plain Sneha, Acha Snehapana means, Acha means clear. And in commentary also he says Kevala Sneha. That means Kevala Sneha means the plain Grita should be taken as for the purpose of Acha Snehapana. But from the commentary, it is clear that it is not Kevala Sneha. He gives that Kevala Sneha is used for the Murdhini Taila, etc. But it is not Acha Snehapana. It can be considered as vicharana Sneha. For the purpose of Murdhini Taila, we never use as plain Tila Taila or plain Grita. So there he mentioned Kevala Sneha is Samskarita Sneha, but not mixed up with any of the Ahara Dravyas. Okay. So why this Samskarita Sneha is important means the mode of action of Snehapana is happening in the Yadida Sthana. When we administer the Shodhananga Snehapana, this Snehana is going to do increase of the Rasa Dhatu or Rasa in the Yadida Sthana and do the Utkleshana there. So if the Doshotkleshana happens in the Vyadida Sthana only, then only we can mobilize that vitiated dosha to the koshta. If it is Doshotkleshana happens in some other part, and if you mobilize that, then that is not that much of beneficial. Of course, there will be some amount of Doshotkleshana happening in Yadida Sthana, but not proper. So that is why the Adhikarana Yukta Snehana, the Samskarita Snehas, which are mentioned in that particular Vyadi Adhikarana, is very important because then only these Sneha Dravya can reach up to that particular target cell. So that is why the Adhikarana of all the yogas are important. For example, the Sahacharadi Kashayam, which is mentioned, I will narrate an example. Sahacharadi Kashayam, which is mentioned in Urustambadikara generally. So that is why the Vriddha Vaidyas, they use the Sahacharadi Kashayam in the for the diseases of the Adhakaya. Once our previous principal, one of the very great scholar of Ayurveda and Kaya Chikitsa, Dr. Vasudevan Nambudiri sir, once he told in the one of our seminars, he told that the Sahacharadi Kashayam is having affinity towards lower limb. Always, all of you know. So that's why it is given in Gridrasi also. This Sahachar, because of its affinity towards lower limb, this Sahacharadi Kashayam can be used as a vehicle for the purpose of administering some Aushadha to the lower limb also. So I heard this, and in the next OP, I had a patient who was with a lichen planus of having some dark scale thick lesions over the leg, anterior aspect of the leg. So before that, I have performed some Shodhana for him. So thickness was reduced, but the discoloration didn't reduce at all. And he was on some medications also, internal medications, some kashayas, etc. So I have given him some Shamana Snehas also previously, but it didn't help much. So after hearing this, I thought that the disease is in the lower limb. Why can't we advise Sahajaradi Kashaya as a vehicle for taking the Aushadha to the lower limb? So I administered Tikta Gritam in that patient. Previously also I have given Tikta Gritam, but here, this time I have given Tikta Gritam along with the Sahajaradi Kashaya. In Sahajaradi Kashayam, Tikta Gritam 1 teaspoon was given twice daily. And when he came for the next follow-up, within 15 days, there was a drastic change in the discoloration also seen. Okay, So this means that particular adhikarana yukta dravya having some affinity towards the vyadi, the target cell of that particular disease. So that is why I say that the samskarita sneha only can reach up to the vyadida sthana as per Acharya Ved. Thank you.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Next question. How can we understand Bahya Sneha, which are included in Vicharana Sneha?
How can we understand? So,
Understand Bahya?
it is very clearly mentioned. Abhyanga, all the Abhyanga varieties we can consider as Snehana, Vicharana Sneha. Like Pirichil is there, it's Vicharana Sneha. Or all the other procedures like Murdani Taila or Vasti, Uttara Vasti, Karnatarpana, Akshitarpana, Karnapurna, all these considered as Vicharana Sneha. I think that was the question, or otherwise make it more clear.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Next question. How much can reliable with the tools like Dharma Lab for assessing Samyak Snigdha Lakshanas? How much can reliable with tools like Dharma Lab for assessing Samyak Snigdha Lakshanas?
Okay. So Dharma Lab combo is an instrument which can give you the information regarding skin elasticity, skin hydration, transepidermal water loss, and sebum content. Okay, this is not a tool for assessment of the Samyak Snigdha Lakshana. Very clear. Okay, but some of these lakshanas, these things, for example, hydration. By doing the skin hydration, how much skin is hydrated, that means is similar to that of murduta or snigdhata of the skin. Sebum content in the skin is similar to anga snigdhata. And transepidermal water loss, if it is more or less, this can be checked with the Dharma Lab combo. And skin pH also. Okay, so during Rukshana, the pH towards acidic, and during Snehana, pH of skin is towards to alkaline. Okay, so all these parameters have some relation with the Samyak Snigdha Lakshanas, but it is not a tool for the assessment of the Samyak Snigdha Lakshana. So that is why we have developed a tool to assess the Samyak Snigdha Lakshana, a validated tool. And now we are checking the reliability or strength of that tool as criterion validation with the help of some of the parameters of the Dharma Lab combo. Next.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Next question from Deepa Khadagli. Sir, as we are told to do Shodhana before Garbhadharana, but in case of Swastha person, Shodhana is not recommended. So what should be the plan in this context?
As we are recommended to Shodhana before?
Garbhadharana, sir.
Eh?
Garbhadharana.
Garbhadharana.
But in case of Swastha person. But in case of Swastha persons, Shodhana is not recommended. So what should be the plan in this context?
See, as a part of Kshetra Shuddhi, that is what he mentioned, I think. For the purpose of Kshetra Shuddhi, Shodhana is mentioned in the text. Okay. And for the purpose of, but in Swastha, the Shodhana is contraindicated. That is true. Only Ritu Anusara Shodhana can be done in the Ritu Anusara Shodhana can be done in the Swastha persons. Okay. Of course. And for the purpose of Kshetra Shuddhi, actually the Acharyas mentioned the Shodhanas. It doesn't mean that at any time we can do Shodhana. Instead, it can be planned on the Ritu Kalas. For example, in Vasanta Ritu, if the person undergoes Vamana Karma, then it can be, after that, the person can try for the conceiving or the progeny. Okay, so this can be taken as a part of the Kshetra Shuddhi, Ritu Anusara Shodhana also. And if at all the patient is having some comorbidities, then according to that, we can go for some Shodhana, which is also beneficial for the Garbhadhara. Like that also we can plan.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Sir, before we conclude, we go for vote of thanks, sir. Over to Supriya ma'am.
Okay.
Good afternoon all. So today on the first day of our webinar series Panchakara 2020, we had a very enlightening speech by Dr. Anant Sharma sir. And sir, you have very nicely presented about the Dalana's view regarding Koshta Vivechana sir. And also you have cleared all the doubts in the dose fixation of Snehapana and assessing the Koshta and Agni sir. I am very grateful to you, sir, and I thank you, sir, and I thank today's guest speaker, Dr. Anantram Sharma, sir, for taking time in their busy schedule and enlightening us on the today's topic. On behalf of myself and Principal KC Das, sir, and all the staff members of SVMC, thank you once again, sir. I also thankful to our management members of Vijay Mahantesha Vidyavartaka Sangha for their constant support for organizing this webinar. I also thank Dr. KC Das sir, Principal SVMC, for his guidance and support. I also thank the organizing chairman Dr. Badrinath sir and organizing secretary Dr. Vijay Hiremet sir and the co-organizer Dr. Bhosle ma'am for their support. And lastly, I also thank all the teaching staff members of SVMC and the PG scholars of SVMC. And last but not the least, I also thank all the participants of this webinar, Panchakara 2020. Thank you. Thank you once again, sir.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity and a grand success for the this national level webinar coming days also. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
And one more thing, you can see in the this one participant of the Zoom. There is more in that you can the host can mute all the participants, and
yes, sir.
You can deny them to unmute themselves.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that is very important. Otherwise, it's very much disturbing during the presentations. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Can I leave?
Yes. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay.